Welcome to the Random Encounter Show. I'm Deathstalker V. You already know what time it is, I hope. It's time to have something to drink, which I'll take right now, and come pull you up a chair and sit at the table. It's Table Talk, where we just have raw, impromptu discussions on various hobby-related gaming material. This week, we're getting straight back into what is our main focus, if we have one, what I hope to be the main focus of our channel, which is tabletop role-playing games as solitaire players. Yeah? Let me get stuff straightened out here. I've been playing some Traveler for a little while, a little bit of solo Traveler. Absolutely love it. But this episode in particular, I think it's going to be important for our channel. Yeah? Because I think it lays down a foundation stone to where I want us to get in the future, which is deeper, more meaningful solo RPG play than what's been in the mainstream of our solo hobby for so many years. It's the reason I even came to YouTube. That and to create a great community of like-minded people, which we have here. Everyone's welcome. It's an absolutely beautiful community to get involved with. Links in the description below for all types of ways to get involved here. But being subscribed is the #1 way. But with this episode, what we're going to be talking about is the true strengths of solo tabletop roleplay gaming, at least according to Deathstalker V. Yeah? Remember, everything about gaming and everything that's opinion-based is subjective. Yeah? So if we step on your toes, we don't apologize anymore. But why is the strengths of solo gaming? Why even do an episode of Table Talk on this? I think it's very important that we talk about the strengths of tabletop solo role-playing game, because when we talk about the strengths, we're really talking about how we think and what we expect from our solo hobby. And the solo hobby is just like everything else in the world. How we think of it and what we expect from it pretty much determines what we will actually get out of it over time. And there's so many people that contact me and I meet that they're just not satisfied with their solo hobby. They feel like they're not getting deep enough games, that it's not that interesting, or they just start and it just seems confusing to them. Basically, it boils down to they're not getting what they want out of their hobby. Well, that's why I'm here, right? Yeah, I'm here to help you out. I think when it comes to mainstream when it comes to the mainstream of our hobby, I think that the supposed strength that's pushed by the mainstream is a huge roadblock or stumbling block for people that's trying to enjoy the hobby and just can't get it going. Because what they say, it makes really no sense, at least to me. If you look at mainstream solo content here on YouTube, if you buy books, or actual solo RPG game materials and such, what is always portrayed, what is always on the cover, what is always the big idea, the strength about it? It's always that if you don't have a group, or you can't find a group, you can play tabletop role-playing games as a solo player. Yeah? Now that's absolutely true, and I think absolutely obvious. They call it solo for a reason, right? But that really doesn't speak to any strengths of solo gaming itself. It almost comes off like it's a cheap substitute for not having a group. And I'm here to tell you it's absolutely not. And I'm here to tell you that when it comes to my gaming hobby and my gaming over decades, I've had much more deeper, satisfying, interesting role-playing games as a solo player versus than with a group. Yeah? Let's get into this. And guys, if you're new here, realize we're going to be building on the concepts that we're laying in our solo videos around here. That over time, these will be building into something bigger and bigger and bigger. But let's contrast that for a second. Let's talk about group gaming and understand why you don't want to see solo gaming as a cheap substitute for group gaming. To me, group gaming, the greatest aspect of it, and really the only strength it has, is the social aspect. Getting together with friends and family, sitting around a table, throwing dice, having the shared storytelling experience, and sharing some laughs, and having a good time. You know, that's what group gaming's all about. That's the high points. When it comes to the actual gaming, you know, the on the table, to me, compared to solo gaming, it suffers a whole lot. Why? Because of its nature. That no matter what you personally get interested in the game, what you want to explore, what you want to do, you have to have fair play with the group. That no one can really shine or whatever, that everybody has to come up with a consensus of what they're going to do in the game, of where they're going to go, of what story they want to share. And that's just the way it has to be to stop it from being chaos AD. But the limitations of group play absolutely do not define solo play or have anything to do with solo play. In great contrast, let's just go ahead and get into what I consider the greatest strength of solo gaming. Then we'll talk about compared with group gaming and stuff as we go through the video. When it comes to the greatest strength of solo gaming, I have to sort of paint you a picture or explain it a little bit, because I don't have any just keywords or buzzwords that's going to make you understand instantly. When it comes to solo gaming compared to group gaming, for example, the worlds that you imagine for your games, the characters you imagine for your games, in a group experience, we try to share our imagination. The problem is no two people imagine anything exactly the same, right? Okay, so that's where the strength comes in. That any world you imagine, any character you imagine, no one outside of your imagination is going to love, appreciate, enjoy, or understand them anywhere near what you do. And solo tabletop role-playing games allow us to take any world of our imagination. We throw some tools, some know-how, and some mechanics behind it, and we let it become a living, breathing world. And we can create any character we imagine. And in a first-person sort of way, we can step behind the eyes of that character and directly experience that world of our imagination as a living, breathing thing. It actually is sort of profound in a lot of ways. We won't get off into psychology and different things like that, but it's actually very profound. I think on it like this. You know, that in a comparison, you know, that if I wanted to tell you about my character, if I wanted to tell you about my world, I can own these things are unlimited in my mind because the imagination is seemingly infinite, right? So I can sit and imagine and imagine and imagine. But if I want to share it with you, I can only give you just little tidbits at a time. Yeah? With solo gaming, you can let that imagination roll. You're not having to share it with a group of people or with anybody else. Let me get a drink here. I think that's very important. I think it's very profound. And it's just such a deeper, more interesting experience than anything really, because there's nothing else in the world that will let you step into your imagination as a character. There's nothing else. Not video games, not group gaming of role-playing games, none of it. But yeah, and I sit and I think about things. You know, I think about J.R.R. Tolkien, how he created Middle Earth, and throughout time, books like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and some of the other smaller works and poems and such, how they grew into various forms, from video games to various movies and cartoons, to works inspired by them. Even our hobby, the role playing games, heavily inspired by Tolkien. Early D&D and early fantasy games, and fantasy games still are to this day. So he had a huge influence on our hobby. But how many Tolkien fans are out there based, with all of the stuff that revolves around Middle Earth nowadays, toys and everything? I'm sure it's in the millions. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was a billion or more. People over time that just loved his works. But we even have Tolkien scholars out there. This is a real thing. People who have taken up the academic research and publishing academic papers on Middle Earth, its peoples and narratives and such that J.R.R. Tolkien put into his books. I think that's fascinating. But the thing is that, yes, we got The Hobbit. Yes, we got the Lord of the Rings. Yes, we got the Silmarillion. Yes, we got a few poems from Middle Earth. But how much do you think Tolkien was able to share based on what he had in his mind? Very little. Very little. The proof lies in the fact that, like in the Lord of the Rings, there are peoples, places, events, and histories, and known heroes and such of the past ages that were mentioned, but that's all we ever got, was just that mention. It leads the scholars crazy and the online fans going nuts with arguments. Quite entertaining. But just a few mentions here. There are things that we have no real clue about. But do you think, for 1 second, that Tolkien himself didn't have these peoples and these places and such already in his imagination when he just mentioned them in his books? Absolutely, I think he had an idea. Because Middle Earth had evolved over when he was with his writing. I read this. What is it? I got a special edition of The Hobbit, and the estate of Tolkien. I think Priscilla, his daughter, was the main contributor, and they talked about how Middle Earth evolved over the years when he started telling it as a children's story about Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit, and eventually leading up to the first book, The Hobbit, and then later on. So he imagined this place. But I think how profound it would have been for Tolkien that if he would have been born in an age that had role-playing games, and he would have had the tools and know-how to play them as a solitaire player. Think about how he could turn Middle Earth into a living, breathing world, putting the mechanics and tools behind it, and picking a time in its history and a place wherever within his world, and he could be able to step foot in his world in the first person and let the mechanics run the world based on the logics and histories and peoples and such that he's programmed into it. Think about experiencing Middle Earth, how Tolkien could have done that within his mind, not just dreaming up, or imagining things, but seeing them come to life before him. Think about how profound it would have been if he could have really got into it with our hobby and maybe strolled through the Shire and met Bilbo Baggins, you know, met Gandalf, or any of these characters, and let the mechanics run those characters, and while they're familiar and while they conform to his idea of them, the solo gaming mechanics and the way we build a balanced world, you also get a lot of surprises. Yeah, I think that would have been an amazing experience for him. And it's absolutely possible what I'm talking about with solo gaming, because that's the way I game. I seek to create a living, breathing world, and I seek to actually role play in the first person a character I imagine. Yeah? Now, contrast that with solo gaming as it's portrayed today. You know, in the mainstream. That it's some kind of substitute for group gaming. And with all the content creators on YouTube, the great majority do what we're about to talk about. And almost every solo gaming book I have on my shelves also portray solo gaming as some kind of replication of the group experience. And I just don't get it. It's the whole build a party of characters. Very shallow, let's bounce around from town to town, from dungeon to dungeon. Let's help people. Let's bang bad guys over the head with a sword. Let's find loot and gain power in the world. Yeah? And while I have no problem with that per se, because very occasionally I will play that style of game, to me it just doesn't work though for deep solo gaming. It just doesn't work. The group experience itself, we said that the gaming sort of suffers a little bit, right? So how would it be replicating that group experience without the group? You're still getting a pretty shallow game experience. So yeah. And I think overcoming that is another strength of solo gaming when it comes to play styles. Solo gaming of tabletop role-playing games allows us to have play styles or ways of playing that typically would never be possible as a shared group experience. With play styles, let's explain. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my gaming hobby and explain these styles a little bit so that you can have an idea. I think if you think about this for a little while, your tabletop gaming as a solo player will improve vastly. Just getting away from the whole replication of the group experience. Let me chew some ice while I'm on camera. Yeah? When it comes to play styles, we are not bound by the typical adventuring party. If that's what you like to do, by all means do it. This is a hobby. This is a hobby channel. Yeah? It's what you do on your table is important, not what anybody else does or says. When it comes to play styles, though, the strengths that solo gaming can offer is in the fact that you're not forced to share the game, so therefore you've got some things to try that might be new to you. One of those things, and I think it's a key, this is a big key to solo gaming. We'll get into everything we talk about here in much more detail in future episodes. But one of the key elements to tabletop solo gaming, I'm going to give you right here. It's that you need to have a single character, a main character, a single focus for a character that you're going to actually role play. R-O-L-E. Yeah? That doesn't mean you don't have other characters in your game, but you directly are in control of your main character. Every other being in the world is part of the world. Yeah? You have to separate yourself from the world. The world is able, you use your mechanics for solo gaming. You use your tables, your event charts, your encounter charts, or whatever you design and build on your own. Those run your world, Let those also run all the beings of your world. I find it very, very difficult as a solo player to create a party of characters and I'm going to role play all of them. Yeah? I find that difficult. I find it hard to really connect to a single character. And I find it very tedious at the end. And conversely, you never want to do what I see a lot of solo gamers doing. They're leaving their character and their world up to game mechanics. On tons and tons of channels, I see people say, "What's my character do next?" And they roll die. Yeah, they roll a die, they roll dice to find out what their character's going to do next. That's very shallow, and it's how is that interesting watching a game play itself? You're not a character, you're not the game, you're off in this third person just watching. Yeah, you got to get in and get your hands dirty. But that leads into our play styles. Being able to focus on a single character. Keeping up with this character almost, if you want to, I like it this way, keeping up with them on an almost day-to-day basis. Because with solo gaming, you're able to focus in on the fine details. And the details are what make solo gaming so interesting. Yeah? But looking at a single character, one of the most natural ways to solo game, at least I've noticed over time, and something that I play a lot of, is just like in real life. We meet somebody, yeah? We want to converse with them. We want to find out if we have things in common and whatnot. First thing we ask them is, "Hey, what's your name? What's the next thing you want to know? What do you do for a living? What's your profession?" And that leads to what I'm talking about as a single character. They should have a profession that they're doing or whatever. What defines them, basically. Not necessarily a character class, but a character class is essentially a profession, right? But what gives them their definition of what they actively do in the world? You know, where is their focus at? So when it comes to profession or daily lifestyle gaming, there's just an infinite variety that you can choose from that you're going to find that as you go along with it, it only becomes more and more interesting as you go. Just for example, we could look at playing a merchant. Yeah? The day-to-day life of some kind of merchant. There's 100,000 merchants on 100,000 different worlds across the spectrum of role-playing games. All role-playing games have merchants in them, right? They're normally background characters. Have you ever thought of making one into your main character? Just for example, you could have a fantasy setting merchant who's decided they want to own the biggest shop in Bard's Gate. Bard's Gate is from Frog God Games. It's a massive, sprawling fantasy city. Yeah? So maybe we start them off at around 18 or so, 20. And starting from the bottom to the top, we progress our character toward the goal of having that big shop. He has to deal with customers. He has to deal with obtaining stuff in various different ways. He has to take care of his money, his employees. He has to deal with guilds, politicians, maybe thieves guilds. Maybe he deals a little bit on the black market. Maybe he builds his shop, you know, and as time goes on, like I said, it gets more interesting because you want to see what you can accomplish in the world. Yeah, if you get to a point, and you will get to a point that you will not want to stop because you want to see just if those goals are met and keep pushing toward them. We could talk about another type of merchant, maybe a frontiersman in a fantasy setting. He has a few mules and a wagon or something. And instead of wanting the biggest shop, he goes out to the frontier and he travels from location to location among the frontier, swapping furs, trading, provisions, and different things like that. And that would probably lead to a few more different adventures in the frontier. Just as in Bard's Gate, there would be a lot of more urban style adventures and such. But you're never bound. Maybe the guy in Bard's Gate who has the big shop Maybe a shop gets burned down and he gets ran out of town and all he has is a mule and a few possessions, and he goes to the frontier and becomes a merchant. You're never bound by anything as a solo gamer. Other professions to think about. And also these same professions could be in a pulp setting, a modern setting, a historical setting, science fiction setting. It's all very interesting, but I'm just giving you things that I've played in the past and I've really enjoyed. City guards. You know, we could talk about Bard's Gate again, or maybe you're a village guard or something. But starting your career off as a low rank, having senior guards to deal with, going out on your guard duties, making friends with people, making enemies out of people, seeing what happens in the city on a day-to-day basis. It becomes fascinating, and it's fascinating of where your guard's going to end up going in life. Rangers are very interesting. Enforcing the king's will, as in like a fantasy medieval law enforcement over a tract of land, or even in a science fiction setting, being like a space ranger who's entrusted to watch this planet system or whatever. There's just so much you could do with the professions. And it comes down to, just like my favorite TV episodes that I just can't stop watching. I want more and more and more. It comes down to you sort of taking ordinary characters or ordinary people and watching them go through sometimes extraordinary circumstances in life. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And the good thing, unlike your favorite TV shows and novels and such, it never has to end. It goes where you want it to go. It stops where you want it to stop. It's a lot of fun. Other play styles. One that did a great translation from video game to tabletop for me was a video game called Harvest Moon 64. It was on the Nintendo 64. A system that only had maybe 3 or 4 games I really enjoyed on it. I was so disappointed in the Nintendo 64 versus the Sega Saturn and such. I don't know, that's another episode, but regardless to say, the N64 was the last time I bought a Nintendo console. Yeah? But Harvest Moon 64, if you don't know about it, I think there's some games now that replicate the experience on modern consoles. And I'm sure Harvest Moon is still around somewhere. But the game was about, you inherited a farm that was dilapidated. It was ran down, it needed a lot of work and everything, but you travel there and you take the farm over. And initially your time is spent rebuilding the farm, mending fences, repairing buildings, but getting rocks out of the fields and such. But you're still responsible for planting crops and raising animals, because you have to raise money. The farm has to become productive. Yeah? But it's set up on this daily cycle, weekly cycle, monthly cycle, and seasonal cycle. And it becomes so addictive as you play. There's one out there, what is it? Stardew Valley, I think it's called. So that might give some of the younger audience to know what we're talking about. But as you go and as you fix things up and as you earn more money, your farm, you can get better equipment. You can make it larger. You can keep going. It's up to you to water all the plants, keep them weeded. It's up to you to take care of the animals, fed and all this kind of stuff. And outside of your farm, there were several locations that if you had time to break away from your farm, you could go check out. There was a full little town that had NPCs in it that you could build relationships with over time and buy different goods and partake of things. And every once in a while there would be events for this little town or village, such as dances and who can grow the biggest radish kind of thing. You know what I mean? But the farm itself was interesting because every day that you took care of the plants, they did well. If you didn't have time to take care of them because you're busy with whatever's going on, they suffered. So I said, I really want to bring this to the tabletop. And I think we'll show this, we'll do a gameplay of this in the future here as one of our campaigns. But what I did was I rolled up and set up a little area, hex map area, of a farm and a village and some random locations around in a fantasy setting, and populated it with randomly generated NPCs and such. But with the farm itself, I set up something that a lot of people really don't think about, that I've seen on talking about solo gaming. And I think it's one of the key things you can have. Again, we'll get deeper into this stuff on another episode. But setting up timekeeping event tables. Yeah? For this farm, I set up a daily, a weekly, a monthly, and a seasonal. And I kept time using just a normal real-world calendar. One of the ones where each day has a big, like a desktop calendar. There's a big square. You can write notes in the square for each day. Those are fantastic resources, by the way. You can find them free everywhere as soon as a year turns over. Everybody throws calendars away, right? Find some that aren't written in. Anyways, I would use my calendar. And what I did was, all of my crops and all of my animals, I would record daily what I took care of and what I didn't. If I took care of it, it got a daily positive modifier. Or if I didn't, a negative modifier. And the daily modifiers added up into a weekly modifier. The weekly modifiers added up into a monthly modifier. And then the monthly modifiers, 3 months made a season. That gave me my end of the season modifiers. And I would look at all of my crops, and I would use my modifiers and roll. I think it was a percent. I ran it on a percentile dice system with roll plus modifiers that told me exactly how much of each thing did I eventually harvest at the end of the season. So if I really watered and I really weeded and I really took care of those plants, maybe I would roll and I got 100%. 120%, 80%, who knows? If I didn't take care of them, maybe I only got 10% or 20% of the crop yield at the end of the season. Same thing with the animals. Over on the event tables, daily stuff, I would put weather patterns and such. Things that change day by day. On the weekly table, I would put things that were... talking about weather patterns before I get into the weekly stuff, there's tons of RPG game master guides and such, especially older ones, that have lots of useful weather tools in them. Back over to the weekly stuff. Weather could be part of that. Also, things going on in the village. Maybe people visiting the farm. Things going on around the farm or on the farm. Maybe some pests came in, or maybe there was a problem or something. Maybe lightning struck the barn. Who knows? It's up to you to make those tables based on your world and your desires. The monthly stuff. Maybe I had different events. Again, with the village. Maybe there was a monthly festival or a holiday or a dance. Who knows? It's up to you. For the monthly stuff. Now, we just did monthly. For the seasonal stuff, we would include things that might happen a little bit more, that don't happen often. Yeah? And then I had a yearly table. And that was stuff that may or may not happen once in your lifetime. Who knows? But with all that, it turned into this amazing game. And it was so addictive, just like the video game. I got so interested and invested in my farm, I just couldn't stop playing. I really couldn't. That's why I've done it one time and I'm scared to do it again. I couldn't stop playing this game. I enjoyed it so much because you want to see where it goes. You want to see where you achieve. If you stop now, that, hey, all the time you've invested in everything, it feels like you're going to miss out. Yeah, it keeps it so interesting. But it's an absolute fantastic way to play. Uh, Another style that's similar to that in ways is I almost call it like an Age of Empires style game, but it's not Age of Empires. Age of Empires is a computer game where you ran a big kingdom from a third eye view, sort of like a god or something. And there was lots of games, but Age of Empires 2 was my favorite. I still love that game. Anyways, let me get something to drink over here. I would run this Age of Empires style game because I don't have any other word for it. Maybe you could call it, I think that's an appropriate term. Let's just go with Age of Empires style game. But I would play the king of a kingdom. Now it could be a mayor of a town or something. Anyways, you're the leader. You're not in the third person view. You're still in the first person. But the game's centered around you managing your kingdom or whatever it is that you manage and running it officially or efficiently, I guess officially as possible as well. Yeah. But again, that's where those event tables and those tables, those daily modifiers and all this kind of stuff come right back into play. You're allocating resources for different projects that you want to do. You're doing things to keep the public opinion on your side. You're keeping rivals to your throne and stuff from swaying your population against you. You've got neighboring kingdoms and such that you're dukes and things that you've got to protect yourself against. You've got to look at always obtaining more and more territory as your kingdom grows. Advancing science projects, building projects, just civilization in general. And I absolutely love that style game as well. And let's do one more out of the infinite number. There's so many. Intrigue games, since we're talking about kings. Let's talk about a kingmaker style game. Intrigue is fascinating. When I set up, last time I played an Intrigue game, I set it up so that the king had passed away and there was no legitimate heir to the throne or official legal heir to the throne. So the kingdom had drafted a regency council, and this council was to manage the kingdom, but also was to select the true heir, or the next heir to the throne, the next king or queen, basically, for the kingdom. And playing a member of that, one of the nobles, they knew one of the members of the council were eventually going to be the ruler of the kingdom. But playing that style game, again, having my event tables and stuff. I didn't have the daily DOS modifier tables and stuff like that. This was a little more open game. But having the daily event tables, weekly, monthly, yearly kind of stuff. Forging alliances. Yeah? Backstabbing enemies. Hiring assassins. Poisonings. I mean, you just name it. Espionage out the yazoo. It was a lot of fun. And it makes a lot of fun for any genre or setting that you can imagine. I think science fiction, it even becomes more interesting because it's all about the technology, right? Or maybe if we're on Dune, it's all about the spice. I don't know. But, yeah, the play style of these games, because you're not locked into a group, you shouldn't be locked into group style play. You want to unlock these games, you want to start reaping the potential of solo gaming. Pay attention to what I've said here. This may not be the most flashy place to come to on YouTube, but you're getting good information, I promise you. Deathstalker 5's here to hit you with the hard stuff. But just changing the way you think, that's one of the biggest things it's going to take for you to advance in the solo hobby. Now, if you're new around here and this is your first video, make sure you're subscribed. Because, like I said, this is foundation stones. Coming up after a holiday special, I plan on pushing the gas a little harder around here. Because I really want to get us to that point where it's almost like a revolution in solo gaming. We have several game designers and authors that listen to the channel. hey, listen to some of these ideas, incorporate them in books. I know I'm going to do my best to in the near future, okay? So if you got any questions and want to collaborate, I'm more than happy to try to help you out. But yeah, it's like I said, it's you got to realize that solo gaming, if you allow it, has the potential to be much more deeper and interesting than group gaming ever can be, at least for the gaming aspect. Yeah, you'll never get the social aspect. So can we drop the replicating the group experience whole narrative for solo gaming? It's holding us back. It's holding back the hobby. It's holding back the genre of books and such. I think it really is. Anyways, what are we going to talk about now? We can talk about a minor strength of solo gaming for Deathstalker V. Yeah, sort of that you don't need a group to play solo gaming kind of thing, but not really. For me, I like solo gaming. Let's talk about for a second why I got into solo gaming. That's a neat thing. If you watch some of my previous videos, you probably already know. I didn't get into solo gaming from a lack of group to play with. I got into solo gaming because I wanted to game more. And that's a really good thing about solo gaming is you can game all you want. You can game every single day. Yeah. But another thing that for me is so important about solo gaming, this is just personal, it's not really a good strength overall, but I play so many older editions of tabletop role-playing game rule systems. I like stuff that was pre-OGL and pre-internet PDF kind of thing because authors and developers and stuff, they really packed the tools and information in with the rule sets themselves that it was just more hobby-centric. They were made for you just to pick up and do whatever you could with them. And they were all geared toward that. So me playing stuff like Rolemaster, 2nd edition, and Standard Fantasy, 3rd, 4th edition, Dragon Quest, obscure games like Sword Bearer and Rune Quest 3rd edition and stuff. It's not easy to find group play for that. Yeah, it's just not easy. But the whole argument that all of solo gaming is because you can't find a group, I think that's losing relevancy very quickly because I don't think there's any excuse for someone not to have a group nowadays for at least mainstream games. You know, we're talking Pathfinder, 5th edition, Traveler kind of stuff. When I log on to social media pages and forums and such that I'm part of that are related to tabletop role-playing games, I never fail to see multiple posts asking for players. I never fail to see Discord channels being shared where players can come join in the games. I never fail to see my local groups advertising for players, looking for players. People are begging for players everywhere. So with the local scene, with the online scene, playing through messengers like WhatsApp and Facebook and such, playing across Zoom, all the virtual tabletops and such that we have access to, if you can't find a group, you just probably don't want a group. So hey, solo gaming's great for you. Yeah, I don't know, guys. If you notice, I'm running out of breath here. My nose has been stuffed. My sinuses have been completely clogged for over a week now. I don't think it's an infection. I don't think it's a cold. I don't know if you can hear it. It's actually raining outside. It started raining. Wow, that's amazing. That's a rarity this year here. I was going to say my nose is so stuffed up because it's been so dry. And our weather here since mid-October is such. One day it's in the 50s. One day it's in the 80s. One day it's in the 60s. One day it's in the 40s. One day it's in the 60s. I mean, it's just up and down roller coaster. If you don't like the weather in Alabama, wait 5 minutes and go back outside. Yeah. Because that's all it takes. It's going to change that rapidly. But it's giving my sinuses just a terrible time. But I think I'm nearing the end of it. Yeah, I don't mean to be disgusting, but last night I coughed up something. And when I tell you it looked like a Jell-O mold, I can't said. When I tell you that it looked like a Jello mold, I'm not kidding. It was like, oh, holy Krishna. Guys, I don't know. Where was documentary film producers when I coughed this thing up? But yeah, it was amazing, and I felt so relieved after I got it out. I felt like a cat I couldn't breathe as it came up. I don't know. Are we too disgusting yet? It was a lot of relief, though. I just felt instantly. It was like my head and my chest opened up. I was like, ah. Then I told my wife, babe, come here to the bathroom. Check this out. You got to see. It's alive. I don't know, guys. Like I said, we got the holiday special to knock down, and we're going to be knocking down this solo stuff, at least some fundamental stuff until then. I've got a few other things planned here and there, and we're going to, after the holiday special, we're going to try to step on the gas a little bit more. Yeah, maybe come with 2 episodes a week, if possible. You might get a few 2 episode weeks here before the holiday special, because there's some games and such I want to cover that'll just take a table talk style or length episode to just run through them. I'm still talking with Troll Lord Games. They're very busy right now about the deep delve. I'm trying to get some things set up to make it special for you guys. It's the system everybody voted on like a year ago. But hey, it's the system everybody voted on that they wanted to see a deep delve on. So we're going to try to get that set up. If for some reason we don't get everything I want set up, we're still going to do the deep delve. But I may do one other one beforehand just to see if we can get things rolling. Because I like to make things special for you guys. You know that? I love each and every one of you. I really do. This community is brilliant. And I look forward every week to at least come on for the table talk and have a discussion with you. Anyways, what are we in here for? 46 minutes. Oh my goodness. Let me get a drink, because if I don't, my throat clogs up. Guys, keep the dice rolling. Keep the dice hot. I don't know what else to say other than I'll see you again very shortly here on the Random Encounter Show. Hey, this is Deathstalker V. I wanted to thank you for watching the Random Encounter Show. If you love tabletop gaming, solo RPGing, or classic video games, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. If you want more of the show, head over to our channel's About page. There you will find our Facebook and Facebook group pages, where you can join in on the fun. Want to help support the show? Make sure to use our affiliate and sponsor links next time you're shopping for your favorite gaming products. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time when we roll for Random Encounter.